Clara knew she shouldn't have taken this road. Not today. Not when everything depended on being in Palm Springs by 3 p.m. sharp. But her GPS had glitched, and instead of returning to the highway she thought this dusty back road would save her time. It didn't. The heat was unreal, pulsing through the tinted windows of her Tesla like an oven. Her white blouse clung to her back. Her AC had stopped working half an hour ago and now, worse, the entire dashboard flashed red. Then, the car rolled to a dead stop. She tapped the steering wheel, cursed softly, and tried to restart it. Nothing. The battery wasn't responding. The screen went black. Great. She muttered. Just great. She reached for her phone, hoping to call roadside assistance, but the signal bar showed zero. No bars, no Wi-Fi. Nothing. The road was silent. No cars passed by. Just desert, scrubby bushes and a sky so blue it felt fake. She stepped out of the car, her heels sinking slightly into the soft sand beside the asphalt. Heat shimmered on the horizon. Her lips were dry within minutes. She had no idea how far she was from the nearest town. Panic began to swell in her chest. She opened the frunk, stared uselessly into it, then closed it again. There was nothing she could do. She thought of her meeting, of the investors waiting for her presentation. Months of preparation, gone. If she missed it, she paced. She cursed. Then she finally decided to start walking. She walked along the shoulder, her phone held high in the air as if that would magically pull down a signal from the sky. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Her feet began to ache. Sweat ran down her back, and along her temples. Then, out of nowhere, the sound of a rumbling engine. She turned. A dusty, dented old pickup truck appeared on the road, heading toward her. It looked like it had seen better decades. The driver slowed down and stopped beside her. The window rolled down. "Need a hand?" the driver asked. He was young, maybe 20, maybe younger. Tanned skin, sun-bleached hair, a white tank top stained with grease. His eyes were clear and unreadable. He looked like someone who belonged to the desert. "My car broke down," Clara said. "I think it just died." He nodded once, stepped out of the truck and walked past her without another word. She followed him back to her Tesla. He didn't talk. He just popped the hood, pulled a small flashlight from his back pocket, and started looking. After a moment, he said, "Looks like your auxiliary battery overheated. Common out here. I've got a workaround." He walked back to his truck, rummaged around in the back, pulled out a box of tools and some weird-looking cables. Within 10 minutes, he had the Tesla connected to some jury-rigged contraption from his truck. Clara watched, completely lost. "You do this a lot?" she asked. He shrugged. Sometimes. He was quick, precise. His hands moved confidently, like someone who'd done this 1,000 times. After a few more minutes, he stood up and wiped his hands on a rag. "Try starting it," he said. She got in, pressed the start button, and the dashboard lit up. The air conditioner roared back to life. Relief flooded her. "Oh my God. It's working. You're a lifesaver." He gave a small nod, started packing up his tools. She got out, reached for her purse. "Let me pay you, please." He looked at her for the first time properly, then shook his head. "No need. You just needed help, that's all." "At least tell me your name," Clara said. He paused for a second, then gave a half smile. "Nate." He climbed back into his truck. As he started the engine, Clara took a step forward. "Wait, Nate. I didn't even thank you properly." He interrupted softly. "Good luck." And with that, the truck pulled away. She stood there, stunned, watching the dust trail disappear into the shimmering heat. She didn't know why, but something about him stayed in her mind. The calmness, the simplicity, the way he helped her and left without asking anything. She got back into her Tesla, and sat in silence for a long moment. She had power now. The meeting was still barely within reach, but her thoughts weren't on the meeting anymore. They were somewhere else entirely, somewhere down that road, with a boy named Nate. Clara returned to her normal life, But something inside her had shifted. The moment she stepped back into her LA office, everything felt a little off. The city buzzed around her, full of meetings, emails, polished concrete, and designer furniture, but her mind was far away, somewhere under the desert sun, with a stranger who had barely spoken more than 10 words to her. She couldn't forget his hands. The way they moved with confidence, the way he never hesitated, the way he didn't ask, didn't explain. He just helped. And his eyes, calm, still, like he'd seen 1,000 versions of her panic, and had learned long ago not to be fazed by any of them. Her assistant noticed her drifting. "You okay?" she asked. Clara lied. "Just tired." But tiredness didn't make you wake up thinking about a stranger. Tiredness didn't make you imagine him everywhere. In a man passing by the window, in the grease-stained shirt of a mechanic, in the voice of a song on the radio. She tried to get back to her routine. She finished the presentation. The clients were impressed. Her team celebrated. But she left early, went home, lay in bed, and stared at the ceiling for hours. On the fourth day, she started searching. She opened social media and typed roadside help, Palm Springs, Tesla breakdown Nate. She scrolled for hours. Nothing. She joined a local car group, and posted anonymously. No luck. Next she called a friend, Jackson, a mechanic who had helped her with her old car years ago. Ever heard of a young guy named Nate, who does desert repairs? Probably early 20s, drives an old pickup. Jackson laughed. Deserts full of guys in old pickups. Clara, that's like asking if I know a surfer named Mike. Still, he promised to ask around. Her friends teased her. One even joked, "So what? He fixed your car and stole your heart." She didn't laugh. Her co-workers noticed something different. Clara, who used to command rooms with her presence, now stared out the window between meetings. She missed deadlines. She forgot appointments. "What's going on with you?" her business partner finally asked. Clara looked at her. "I think I met someone." "Really? That's great. Who is he?" She paused. "I don't know. I don't know anything about him. Not even his last name." The partner raised an eyebrow. "Sounds more like a fantasy than a man." "Maybe," Clara said softly, "but it didn't feel like fantasy when he was standing in front of me." That weekend Clara did something irrational. She drove back. Same road. Same sun. Same silence. Only this time, her car worked perfectly, and that made her even more restless. She kept driving, slowing down when she passed the spot where it had happened. She got out, stood at the side of the road, looked around. Nothing. She drove to the nearest gas station. Inside, the air smelled of old coffee and rubber. A man behind the counter looked at her, with mild curiosity. "Excuse me," Clara said. "I'm looking for someone." "Young guy. Drives a beat-up truck. Might be named Nate. He helped me here a few days ago." The man scratched his chin. "Nate? You might be talking about the kid from Sky Ridge." Sky Ridge. Little place. About 100 people. If that, up near the canyon. Hard to find if you don't know where you're going. Clara's heart thudded. "Do you know how to get there?" The man gave her directions, pointing with a pen and drawing a rough map on a receipt. Clara stared at it. It felt like the first real lead. A place. A possibility. She thanked him, stepped outside, and stood still for a moment. The air was hot again. The sky just as blue. But now there was movement. A trail, however faint, leading somewhere. She didn't know what she expected to find. Maybe it was stupid. Maybe Nate wasn't even there. Maybe he'd just been passing through. Maybe he had a girlfriend, a whole life, a reason to disappear. But the idea of not knowing hurt more than any of those maybes. So she got back into her car, turned the key, and started driving again. Toward Sky Ridge. Toward the boy with the calm eyes and grease-stained hands. Toward something she couldn't explain, but couldn't let go of. The road to Sky Ridge was barely a road at all. Clara followed the hand-drawn map, turning off the highway onto a narrow, dusty path that wound between dry hills and rust-colored rock. There were no signs, no buildings, just open land, and the occasional wooden fence half swallowed by time. She drove slowly, windows down, dust curling in behind her. For the first time in years, she had no signal, no notifications, no emails, just her thoughts, and a pounding heart she couldn't quiet. After almost an hour, the road dipped into a shallow valley. There, tucked into the fold of the hills, was Sky Ridge. It wasn't much. A scattering of houses, some trailers, a general store, with a faded awning, and a small diner with 2 cars parked out front. The town looked like it had stopped growing, sometime in the 1950s, and never started again. Clara pulled in by the diner, and stepped out. The heat pressed down on her like a weight. Inside, the diner was cool and quiet. A ceiling fan creaked above. At the counter sat 2 older men sipping coffee. A waitress with tired eyes looked up as Clara entered. Clara walked to the counter. "Hi. I'm sorry to bother you. I'm looking for someone." A young man, early 20s. "He helped me fix my car, a few days ago, out near the highway. I think his name's Nate. Drives an old pickup. Kind of quiet." The waitress tilted her head. "You not from around here?" "No. I needed to say thank you. I didn't get the chance." One of the old men chuckled. "If that boy fixed your car, you're lucky. He don't do that for just anybody." Clara turned to him. "You know him?" "Sure do. Nate Wilson. Lives out past the ridge, near the old mill. But he don't talk much. Keeps to himself. Works odd jobs. Doesn't like visitors much." The waitress added. "He's a good kid though. Helps out when people need it. Always polite." Clara felt a warmth rise in her chest. "Can you tell me how to get to him?" The old man scratched his beard. "You take the road behind the store, past the water tower. It'll turn to gravel. Keep going till you see a shed with blue shutters. That's the place." She thanked them, ordered a bottle of water, and returned to her car. The directions were as vague as the map she'd used to get here, but somehow it worked. She drove past the store, followed the gravel path that crackled under her tires, and after 10 minutes, saw the shed. Beyond it, a small wooden house sat among some mesquite trees. A vegetable garden grew in the back. Chickens pecked in the dust. She parked. For a moment, she just sat there, gripping the wheel. Her hands were sweating. What was she doing? She didn't know this man. Didn't even know if he'd remember her. What if he thought she was crazy? But something deeper than fear kept her from turning back. She stepped out, walked to the porch, knocked. Silence. Then footsteps inside. The door opened, and there he was. Nate. Same calm eyes. Same sun-warmed skin. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd just come in from the garden. He stared at her. Expression unreadable. "Hey," she said, her voice smaller than she intended. "You probably don't remember me." He didn't speak for a second. Then, "Tesla. Flat tire. Mile marker 72. Clara laughed, relieved and stunned. "Yeah. That's me." He looked at her car. "Looks like it's working fine now." She smiled nervously. "It is. I'm not here for car trouble. I wanted to thank you. You helped me, and I didn't even get your last name." He leaned against the door frame, arms crossed. "Most people don't come all the way back for a thank you." "I'm not most people," she said quietly. He looked at her for a long time, then finally stepped aside. "You want some water? You look hot." She nodded, stepped inside. The house was simple, clean, quiet, filled with wood and sunlight. A bookshelf with old paperbacks, tools neatly arranged by the wall, a hand-built table. He handed her a glass. She drank. "And you built this place?" she asked. "Most of it," he said. "My dad started it. I finished it." She looked around. It felt like another world. "Why do you live out here?" He shrugged. "Less noise. More sky." She smiled at that. "I get it. I live in the middle of noise. They stood there, silence settling between them. Not awkward. Just full. Like neither of them needed to fill it with words. He finally said, "You came a long way to find me." "I didn't think I would," she admitted. "But I couldn't stop thinking about you." That surprised him. He looked down, then back at her. "You're not what I expected." "Me neither," she said. He smiled then, just a little. But it changed his whole face. And in that moment Clara knew. She hadn't been crazy to come here. Something had begun. Clara stayed longer than she meant to. It started with water. Then Nate offered her a tomato, warm from the sun, just picked from his garden. She bit into it and laughed. "That's the best tomato I've ever had." He smiled. "It's the dirt. Up here it's good." "You say that like a scientist." "Just a man with dirty hands," he said. They sat on the porch in two old chairs. Chickens wandered by. A breeze passed over the dry hills, and the silence between them felt easier now, more familiar, like two people who already understood the shape of each other's presence. "What do you do?" he asked. "I'm an architect. Big buildings, airports, hotels, glass, and concrete." "You like it?" "I used to. Now I just like the idea of liking it." He nodded, like he understood. She looked at him. "And you? Whatever comes. Fixing things. Building sheds. Fencing. Some days I help my neighbor with his goats." "Simple life," she said. "Not easy, but honest." They talked for hours, about everything and nothing. Childhood stories, weather, the quiet of stars. Clara found herself laughing more than she had in months. Nate wasn't loud, but he listened like every word mattered, and when he did speak, it came from somewhere deep, like a well he didn't open often. As the sun began to lower, he stood. "You hungry?" She hesitated. "I don't want to impose. You came all this way." Said, "Be ashamed to leave hungry." He cooked in silence. Just beans, tortillas, fresh vegetables and eggs. Everything simple. Everything perfect. She helped slice onions, and got scolded gently, for how she held the knife. She laughed, like a teenager. He showed her how to flip the tortillas. She burned one. He didn't say anything, just smiled, and handed her another. They ate outside. The sky was turning golden violet. "You really live alone out here?" she asked. "I've got the wind, the garden, the radio, when the clouds let me, and no one." "There used to be someone." She left. "Didn't like the quiet, I guess." "I didn't like the noise," Clara said softly, "but I stayed in it anyway." "Why?" "Because I thought I had to." He looked at her. "You don't seem like someone who does what she's told." That made her laugh again, and blush a little. She wasn't sure why. She looked out at the hills. "I don't know what I'm doing here, Nate. I don't usually chase people down. I don't go looking for strangers who fix cars and vanish." He didn't answer right away. "Maybe I'm not a stranger." She looked at him. "Maybe you came back because part of you knew this place, knew me." That scared her, but it also felt true. "You believe in that kind of thing?" she asked. "Fate. I believe in moments. You get a few real ones in life. Most people miss them, or run away. And this, you think this is one?" He stood up slowly, walked to the edge of the porch, looked at the horizon, then back at her. "I don't know what it is, but I didn't want it to end." She joined him, standing shoulder to shoulder. The wind picked up. Somewhere in the distance, a hawk cried out. She turned to him. "Can I see you again?" "You're seeing me now. You know what I mean." He nodded. "I do." And? He didn't say anything, just looked at her, and something passed between them, like a thread pulling tight. Then he said, Come back tomorrow. Early. I want to show you something. Clara felt something inside her twist and settle, like a door opening. She nodded. I'll come back. As she drove away, the hills turned purple behind her, and the last light clung to her rearview mirror. Her hands trembled on the wheel. She didn't know what would come next, but she knew she'd be back. Clara arrived just after sunrise. The sky was still soft with morning haze, and dew clung to the edges of the grass, as if the world hadn't fully woken up yet. Nate was already waiting, leaning against his truck, sipping coffee from a tin mug. He didn't speak, just gave her a slow nod and a second mug. She took it. It was strong, almost bitter. She loved it. Ready? He asked. She nodded. They drove in silence. The road grew narrower, the hills rougher. Eventually, Nate parked the truck near a dirt trail. We walk from here. How far? Not far, he said. Just quiet. The trail curved upward, winding through dry brush and wildflowers. Clara's heels sank into the earth. But she didn't complain. She followed him without question, feeling strangely safe in the hush of it all. Birds stirred in the trees. Somewhere, water trickled. A spring maybe. And then, after 20 minutes, she saw it, a cabin, half hidden by trees, weathered but standing, made of thick logs, with a tin roof rusted at the edges. The front door leaned slightly. One window was cracked, but the structure had dignity, like it had outlived storms and silence, and still stood proud. Nate walked up first and pushed open the door. Clara stepped inside. It smelled of wood, dust, and something older. Memory, maybe. Sunlight filtered through slats in the roof. The floor creaked under her feet. You built this? She asked. Me and my dad. Summers when I was 12, 13. Took us 3 years. She looked around. There was a handmade table, a stone hearth, carved shelves. Every corner had the rough marks of care. Not polished, but real. Why here? He shrugged. This was supposed to be our place, off the map. For weekends, fishing, being quiet together. After he passed, I kept coming. She turned slowly, taking it in. Her fingers traced the edge of a chair, the windowsill. Then her eyes caught something. A wooden beam above the fireplace, letters carved into it. 2 names. Nate, Lena. She stepped closer. Lena? She asked softly. Nate didn't answer immediately. He looked at the letters for a long moment. She was my first real person. We carved that the last day she was here. What happened? She left. Went to college. Found someone else. I stayed. Clara felt something press against her chest. Not jealousy. Just something tender, human. You still think about her. Sometimes, he admitted. Not in the way people expect. More like, who I used to be when I was with her. Clara nodded. I had a fiancé once, she said, briefly. He liked what I looked like on paper. Didn't really care who I was underneath. Nate looked at her now, his eyes searching. And who are you underneath? Fun. She wasn't ready to answer that. Maybe because no one had asked her before. Not like this. Instead, she stepped toward the fireplace, ran her fingers along the names, then looked back at him. You brought me here for a reason. He nodded. I don't show this place to anyone. Haven't. In years. Why me? Because I wanted you to know who I was. Before all this. Before the road and the car. And the porch. She took a breath. Something swelled in her chest. That feeling when you realize the moment you're in will matter forever. Nate moved closer. His hand brushed hers. Slow, unsure. She didn't move away. The air between them tightened. She looked up. He was inches away now. His breath warm. Their silence louder than ever. But he didn't kiss her. Instead, he whispered, I don't want to rush this. Not with you. And somehow, that made her feel more wanted than anything else ever had. They stood there, hand in hand, in a cabin forgotten by time, and neither one spoke for a long, long time. Something began to shift between them after that day at the cabin. They started meeting more often, sometimes at the old porch, sometimes by the lake. Other times Nate would take her down forgotten trails and show her wild flowers she'd never seen before, or sketch shapes in the dirt while telling her stories about his childhood. Clara brought a notebook now. She drew things he said. His hands, his eyes, the way he sat cross-legged when he got lost in thought. She hadn't drawn for herself in years. Every day he felt a little more present, like fog slowly burning off his memory. Still quiet, still cautious, but there was something behind his eyes now, something reaching forward. And then one evening, while the sun melted low behind the hills, he suddenly said, "Your car." It was white, not silver. I remember. The sun hit it, and I thought it looked like bone. Clara froze. He stared at his hands. There was oil on my fingers. Black streaks. I wiped them on my shirt. You looked at me like I was something rare. She didn't say anything at first, just looked at him. Then she stepped forward and touched his arm. Gently. You remember. He looked back at her. More than I did before. Tears filled her eyes. She didn't wipe them away. That night, she stayed longer than usual. They sat by the fire pit and talked until the stars came out. Nate told her about a fishing trip with his father, about how he once climbed a tree to hide during a thunderstorm. Clara listened with her whole body, but the next morning, everything changed. He didn't show up. She waited by the porch, then by the trail. When he still hadn't come, she went searching. She found him collapsed near the back of his truck, unconscious, his breathing shallow. Panic flooded her. She called 911 with shaking hands. The hospital was small, but the staff moved quickly. Tests, scans, hushed voices. Clara stood in the hallway for hours, pacing. Finally a doctor approached. He has a cranial lesion, scar tissue from an old injury, likely a concussion that healed wrong. The recent cognitive recovery might have triggered swelling. He'll need surgery. Soon. Her mind spun. Can it be done here? No. He needs to be transferred. We've contacted a specialist in San Diego. She nodded without hesitation. Do it. I'll cover it. Later, the hospital asked for insurance. She gave her card. It didn't take long for the calls to start. A woman. Older. Sharp voice. You're paying for his operation. Yes. Why? Because I care about him. We're his family. You don't even know him. He knows me, and I'm not asking for your permission. Another voice. A man this time. Angry. He's not your project, lady. Lady. You don't get to fix him and walk away. I'm not walking away. But they kept coming. Cousins. An uncle. Some from nearby. Some from nearby. Some from states away. All had opinions. All wanted control. But none of them were there when he woke up. Clara was. She was sitting beside his bed, pale from worry. Her fingers curled lightly around his. He blinked slowly. Am I dead? She laughed softly, then cried again. Not yet. You scared me. He looked around, confused. Where? Hospital. You collapsed. It was your head. But they fixed it. You're okay now. He was quiet for a long time. You stayed. Of course I did. And then, softer, they said someone paid for all this. She met his eyes. It was me. Why? Because I couldn't lose you. Not when I just started to find you. He swallowed hard. I don't remember everything, but I remember enough to know I want to stay where you are. She leaned closer. Then stay. Outside. The voices kept arguing. But in that small white room, the noise faded. Because he was awake. And she was still there. The surgery was a success. It took hours. Clara waited through all of them. Her hands trembling. Her breath shallow. She didn't move from the hospital corridor, afraid that if she blinked, something would change. But when the doctor finally came out, there was a small smile on his face. He's stable. He'll wake up soon. There may be gaps in his memory, but he's here. She exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. When Nate opened his eyes, they were cloudy at first, unsure, but then they found her, and softened. He didn't say much, just held her gaze, like it was the only solid thing in a world still spinning. The next few days passed in quiet recovery. Nurses came and went. Machines beeped, but Clara stayed. Sometimes she sat in silence. Sometimes she read aloud from the book she'd brought. But on the third evening, as the sky outside the hospital turned a dusky pink, he spoke. "Tell me everything. From the beginning." She hesitated. "You really want to know?" "I don't remember who I was. But I know I want to understand. What brought me here, and what brought you to me." So she reached into her bag, and pulled out the notebook. Not the architecture sketches. Not blueprints or plans. Her journal. The one she'd started writing the day her car broke down in the desert. She opened to page 1. There was dust in the air, and sweat on my neck. The screen was dead. I thought I was going to lose everything that day. Then you walked out of the sun, like a ghost from another life. Nate listened to every word. Sometimes he smiled. Sometimes his brow furrowed, like trying to grasp a memory just out of reach. She kept reading. "I kept dreaming about your hands. About how you didn't speak much. How your silence felt safer than anyone else's noise. And how insane it felt to miss someone. I only knew for 15 minutes. After a while." She stopped. "There's more. But you get the idea." He reached for her hand. "You're real. So are you. I still don't know who I used to be. But I know who I want to be. I want to be whoever you see when you look at me." She didn't reply. She just leaned forward, and kissed his forehead, gently. Weeks later, when he was strong enough, she picked him up from the hospital in her car, now fully repaired. Polished. Spotless. The same white Tesla he once pulled back to life in the middle of nowhere. She didn't tell him where they were going. But when she pulled off the highway, and onto that same dusty stretch of desert road, something shifted in his eyes. "This is it." She parked the car. They stepped out into the warm, dry wind. "Here is where everything began," she said. He walked a few steps forward, boots crunching on gravel. "Right there. That's where I saw your face for the first time. And here's where I decided I couldn't walk away." He looked out at the endless horizon. "Then let's start again. Right here. Same road. But this time, no more disappearing." She stepped beside him, took his hand. "This time, I'm not letting you vanish." He turned to her, smiled. "Then I won't even try." The sun dipped low, casting golden light across the empty landscape. The same road, the same sky, but now, two shadows standing side by side, not lost, not forgotten, just finally found.